in my current role, I have this opportunity to take all these theoretical things that I look at as a scientist and put it into practice in a messy, complex, hierarchical system. And one of the things that challenges that is a lot of the existing norms around leadership or professional development really neglect that true professional development has to include personal and professional development. To your earlier points, it has to be attuned to not just who we see ourselves as in a workplace, but who we are in a more holistic or integrative way. When I look at what happens in hospital organizations or different sectors, particularly when it comes to hierarchy, it's actually really tough to do. So on one hand, you can say, we need to role model vulnerability and candor. But what we know, particularly in healthcare, is no matter what we're saying or how we're role modeling it, people live and work and learn in deeply hierarchical systems, and power really influences how that happens. So much so that sometimes people start faking vulnerability or faking humility just because they think that's what they're supposed to do. The missing element here then really becomes choice and agency. And this idea of choice is really coming from a lot of what we know about trauma-informed approaches. And when I say healing-informed, it builds on ideas of being trauma-informed, but it foregrounds not the pain of the trauma, but rather the healing process instead. So choice is central to that. When someone's in the workplace or trying to decide what they want to do, regardless of what that choice is, what I need to do, what we need to do as a system is foster a sense of agency and choice so that individual feels like whatever happens or whatever that outcome might be, it's not something that someone's forcing them to do or taking that choice or agency away. How that shows up in practice could be varied. That could be that there's a group of different disciplines discussing a treatment plan for a complex patient and that different people disagree. What I encourage the group to do in moments like that, instead of debating or deliberating, is actually to disclose what we're afraid of. If we're feeling tense, if we're feeling emotionally charged, if there's a divergence of opinion about something that's really important, it's important to step back and actually surface those fears personally and professionally within the group so that as a collective, you can mediate, understand, and work through some of those dynamic tensions or intractable sort of counterproductive points of contention. Another real important example is in deeply hierarchical spaces, we can't expect those spaces to be the source of healing for people, right? Like sometimes people are like, well, I need the workplace to do this for me, and I need my leader to do this for me, or we need this to happen. The truth is we're all responsible for our own healing. And what I can't do as a leader is do that for anyone or necessarily create the space for someone to be able to do that at work. That's something that people have to be able to find and cultivate for themselves, sometimes outside of the highly charged workplace environment. So really finding those third spaces that we can cultivate to help us heal, supporting and enhancing choice, but also at the end of the day, emphasizing that all of this happens with and through one another in community. And community isn't an idea that should be thought of as outside of an organization. Community is what you choose within an organization and what you build, recognizing that nobody should have to carry the weight of some of the work on their shoulders alone, and that you want to cultivate this sense of sort of collectivism where no one's scapegoated for a bad outcome. People aren't blamed or shamed, but that there's a sense of mutuality that we all share in what's happening. We all share in the success, but that we also all, regardless of where we're at, can be held collectively accountable should there be a misstep or a mistake.